Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 10 o'clock. Shall we get started? Have we got any apologies today, Liam, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Worthington, Councillor Sylvester Hall and Councillor Afsar.
Thank you. Any other apologies? No, we seem to have everyone else here today. That's lovely. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of December 2023. Have we got... Is everyone agreed that this is a true record of the meeting? Graham?
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Graham and Keith. That's for you. Thank you. We're going to take a different order, if that's all right with the rest of the team today, because we have Pat with us today, and as we all know, he's such a busy man. So we're going to bring him forward. That's number 9. That's on page 67. Can we go straight to number 9 on 67? That's the update on the annual governance statement 2022-2023. Over to you, Pat. Thank you for joining us today. Oh, apologies, sorry. Lisa, you're introducing, yes.
Thank you, Chair. It's just really in order to explain why this particular item is coming back to the Audit and Standards Committee. You may recall at the meeting in December, I mentioned that the annual governance statement remains draft until the statement of accounts are finalised. And therefore, if any significant governance issues are identified, and the Ofsted report was in draft at that point, it was agreed that this particular item would then be brought forward to a subsequent meeting of the Audit Committee. In terms of the changes to the proposed draft annual governance statement, they're contained on page 81. They're highlighted in yellow for ease of reference on our direct quotes from the Ofsted report. That has now been received by the Council with the judgment being awarded as requiring improvement to be good. In terms of the changes to the action points or the actions that come out of the annual governance statement, an additional item was included on page 93, again highlighted in yellow as AGS number 12, that highlights the actions that will be taken in respect of the Ofsted inspection report, and I ask the Chief Executive to take you through the proposed changes. Many thanks.
Councillors, good morning. Thank you for the invite to speak, and thank you so much, Chair, for bringing this up the agenda. That's hugely appreciated. Not quite sure how you want me to play this, but if I just give the narrative as I see, then I'm very happy to take any questions on this point. A couple of aspects, really, just to highlight. One is the Ofsted judgment itself, which I hope is well publicised and briefing notes have been issued. So, in a nutshell, this is probably the most important regulatory inspection that we get as an authority, in my humble opinion. This is a judgment surrounding the way that we do child protection and all that flows from that, including children in care, etc. So, it's seen as a bit of a litmus in many ways. Clearly, it follows a well-trodden track. We've been supported by, regulated by Ofsted for a number of years, so we kind of know what to expect in terms of standards. And for a number of years, you'll be aware that Staffordshire has retained a good outcome. That in itself is, of course, good, that it should do that. But it hadn't moved, it has to be said, in that period, so you may question the improvement from that good position. So for an authority, especially such as Staffordshire, to be effectively downgraded, and to be clear that that's what we have, is troublesome and doesn't reflect well on our services. But I think most importantly, it should ask us to question the quality of services that we provide to vulnerable children in Staffordshire. So it's not a judgment to be shirked, to be shrugged off. at all. It's a judgment to be taken incredibly seriously, and it's a judgment which we would now be under increased scrutiny by Ofsted, and I'd also expect the Department for Education to be aware of this outcome and to be concerned by this outcome. So in many ways, our response, which I will go into in a high level of detail, will be important and will be watched carefully. I think actually it does have further implications potentially, although possibly not material indications. First of all, as being said, there is a need with such a significant change to reference within this annual governance statement. And clearly each year we have our external audit, and part of that will be a value for money assessment of the organisation. And in my experience, matters such as judgments like this would be material within that. And there may be a degree of qualification which comes to the whole organisation as a result of this. So you can see, you know, the ramifications are there and for real. Coming back to the judgment of us, my personal view is that this is a fair judgment. I don't think, you know, there will be instances, anybody who's involved in any Ofsted inspection and judgment over the years, where you may have an opinion as to the fairness, the robustness. Is that really us? My personal view is this is really us, so this is a fair judgment and one that we should take incredibly seriously. Did we know ourselves well enough on the lead into the inspection to see this judgment coming? No, we didn't, as a matter of fact. So again, that's a little tell that we ought to take this incredibly seriously. And further, as you can see from the table on the left-hand column on page 11 of the report, I think page 81 of the whole document suite, it wasn't just that we weren't good. We were not good in 3 of the 4 judgment areas, which were the impact of leaders, the experience of children, experience of, who need protection, experience of children who in care and those of care leavers. It was only the experiences of children in care which retained a good rating, although it should be noted, and this is from memory, I think the second one, the experiences of in progress of children who need child protection, was actually requires improvement to be good at the previous inspection as well, which again is quite telling. That's an important one to me. That is how we look after, or we look out for, the most vulnerable in society, and that hadn't improved. And so I think it's not a good look. In terms of although this doesn't really matter, how we compare to our Shire counterparts, our Shire County counterparts, and it is different within a Shire County. We are a huge geography. We're a dispersed population. A smaller unitary, a few miles this way and a few miles that way, could almost see all the children that it needs to. It is more challenging in a county setting, but that said, the majority of counties are now performing, if you take the Ofsted judgment as a measure of performance, better than Staffordshire are, and we should therefore be concerned that not only did the judgment go not particularly well, which is a commentary on our services and the quality of services we provide to vulnerable children, but relatively we've dropped down the order. And so good and outstanding is readily within the grasp of county councils, so why isn't that happening here? So again, I paint a challenging picture, but I think it's massively important that we recognise that we don't make excuses for that, and we act accordingly. So what are some of the immediate actions that have taken place? The expected immediate reaction is that we submit an improvement plan to Ofsted, I think no later than April this year, and that plan is in development. So there will be a very clear plan which addresses the improvement areas, and there were 4 highlighted improvement areas which again are reproduced in this report on page 11 of the report, so the same page as the table. If you like, they are the Ofsted headlines as to, actually, if you're going to start anywhere, this is where it should be. I think in reality, though, our improvement process will look much deeper than that. So, taking the report on face value, there was clearly deficiencies in management oversight and leadership. We were told our front door, that place where that not so physical but virtual front door, that we didn't have the oversight. So, for example, what I took from that was we didn't find any children who were unsafe when we came and looked. But you can't be sure, Staffordshire, that all the children who pass through, you can be sure of that safety. So it's a little bit of, there's a clear warning there. And so on and so forth. It goes on. Some, if I'm being very honest, the second bullet point, the effectiveness and impact of performance data and quality assurance, I mean, they were clear. They told us that our approach to performance and audits, if you like, and quality assurance wasn't good enough when they visited us 12 months ago. Why haven't you improved in that period? And that's it. I think we'd all agree that to be given a warning and then not to follow through on it is a fair comment that we then get caught out. Not universally across the authority, but I think that that's also a bit of an in to the way that we do performance and data and quality assurance in some parts of the authority. So perhaps, although we focus on children's services, it's not all purely a matter for children's services. And again, it's an organisation that needs to learn and move forward to do that. And so on and so forth. We'll develop the response to that. But also, we need to be self-aware to make sure that we capture all of the improvement actions that will rapidly move us away from being a requires improvement to be good and into a good position. That being said, we won't be re-inspected for another 3 or 4 years, so this judgment will hang over us for that period of time. So we will develop and submit the improvement plan to Ofsted. Then it's a question of how we manage that, and I've retained the services of a now ex-Director of Children's Services from elsewhere, also a Department for Education advisor, also the current chair of the Northamptonshire Children's Trust, and if you follow that, you'll know that they were in a dreadful place in terms of the provision of children's services. So he has form, he has knowledge, and he's also learned from the best, having gone through a very similar process with me in Somerset, which moved us from inadequate to requires improvement to good into subsequent inspection. So he's got form, and he will be very good at holding our feet to the fire, being quite dispassionate about both us, and I'll come on to our partners and say, that's the performance that's needed. Let's track it every month. If it's not happening, why is it not happening? Who's accountable? What are we going to do about it? So I'm confident the first meetings of that are happening this month, so we're not waiting for April. We're starting it now so that we can get, by the spring, we'll really get into that rhythm, and that will take a couple of months to get right. That will be both a board working at an operational level, taking frontline managers and holding them to account, and also at a strategic level with the likes of myself and cabinet member in attendance, and frankly being held to account at that. So that's already in action, and that will happen. So we have a plan that we're developing that will be submitted. We also have an improvement process which we now have in place and will be starting this month. And an important aspect of that is also the challenge. So this is an inspection of Staffordshire Children's Services. But frankly, the inspection looks much further than that, and it also assesses the effectiveness of how all partners in Staffordshire work to protect children. And what they found is it's not good enough. Our health colleagues are not responsive enough to the needs of children in care, for example. And so as part of the process, each of our key partners, so that's and I'll get the acronyms wrong, the Integrated Care Board, the police, as it happens, the North Midlands Community Trust, and also MPFT, Midlands Partnership University Foundation Trust, have all agreed to have senior representative on that board. I'm meeting with the Chief Executive to go through it actually of MPFT this afternoon. I spoke to the Chief Executive of the ICB yesterday and the Chief Constable yesterday, and so they're all lined up and they'll be part of that challenge and improvement process. And we're developing a briefing note which I'm going to serve on the NHS colleagues at the beginning of next week to point out exactly where we as an organisation have concerns. I think too often it's seen as we are the lead in child protection, And actually, we're not the only ones who have statutory duties. So you have a process, therefore, of accepting the outcome, the judgment, which is poor. We don't have a plan, but we will have a plan for improvements. We have an independently chaired improvement mechanism that we will drive through that will hold us all to account. And we also have, probably for the first time, senior representation from all partners at the board so that nobody can hide, so that everybody's held to account. I hope and believe that that's a well-trodden path to get us to improvement. We will improve on those really important tactical operational issues quickly. And I think, if I'm being very honest, the partnership response will take months, if not the next year or two, to develop. So some of that will become more slowly. As an aside to this, then I'll shut up, I promise, and take any questions, because I'll have missed lots. Separate to this, because it was going to happen anyway, is I believe it's hugely important that this authority has a permanent Director of Children's Services. Neelam, in a short period of time, serves as well. So this is not a criticism of her at all, but we need permanence, and we're also going through a recruitment process, which I hope is going to come to fruition at the end of this month. And so, coincident with this, we'll also have, I hope, outstanding leadership, and leadership for the longer term, to see us to and through the next Ofsted inspection. So that's the judgment. If you like, that's a bit of a very high-level commentary from me on that. I hope I've described what we have to do next, the satisfaction of the Ofsted process, but also what we want to do next and what we're already starting to do next. So we're not standing still and waiting for things to happen behind us. Chair, thank you. I hope that's an acceptable intro.
More than acceptable. Pat, thank you for your open, honest, even telling us the dirty, horrible bits, so to speak. So very impressed with what you've said so far. I had, myself, a huge amount of questions about this, and you've answered every single one of them. You've just gone bum, 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 bum through my question. So I will open it up to the chair, to the rest of the group.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Executive,
I've lost his name.
I'm quite interested in what led to this failure and if we've actually learnt the lesson. So I'm well aware that looked after children have doubled in the last few years, from below 1,000 to over 2,000 thereabouts. One assumes that children living at home, but also under the purview of children's services, have also increased. I was wondering, is it the fact that Staffordshire Children's Services missed the fact that so many more children were coming into the system and weren't geared up for it, that subsequently led to, I can see it happening over 2 years with COVID and all that. Is this what actually undermined this slow drip, this increase in children requiring support, whether in care homes or at home? Is this the trigger that that led to this mismanagement? And if so, what happens if that happens again? How do we, what are the triggers for that will alert the chief executive of this glorious county to say, hey, we've got a problem? Thank you.
That's a really good and a really strong question. I don't believe that the numbers... Sorry, let me go back. Let me start that again. It's undeniable that an increased number of children who we take into care, and we all know that we don't take children into care. The courts determine that a child needs to be taken into care. It's undeniable that an increased number of children in care will put a strain and a pressure on the organisation. We also believe that we have too many children in care. And that's why we have a project in place to safely to safely, if you like, de-escalate the needs of those children so they no longer need to be in our care. And that's beginning to show signs of success. So, yes, it does put pressure on an organisation, point number one. Yes, we've recognised that now, and we're doing something about that with some green shoots of success. However, I think we have to also be very honest and say we're not the only council that's experienced this massive uptick in numbers of children in care. We may be slightly peakier than others, but you'd be hard-pressed probably, and I don't know this in absolute details, but if I just talk generally, you'd be hard-pressed to find another council that hasn't endured similar increases in numbers, and yet they still are judged good and outstanding. So, therefore, the numbers in itself can describe why there is pressure on the system, but ought not in themselves describe why we reduced in our standards. I think it's important to say as well that what Ofsted didn't find, and this is a huge comfort by the way, it matters, what they didn't find was unsafe social work practice. That would have been really difficult. So what they're saying is, actually you've got workers who are doing a good job and who seem to be doing the right things. What you're not doing though is challenging your workers, supervising your workers. You don't know what's happening on the coal face, if you like. So that's just a little bit of a reassurance in what is, you know, quite not a brilliant picture. So no, the numbers, I don't believe the numbers describe the whole picture of decay. I think we have a view that we restructured and transformed 2 or 3 years ago, and that was probably a big point and possibly the end point in the journey. It wasn't. It's what you then do with your services thereafter. How do we make sure that that doesn't happen again? 3 aspects, I think, which is a lot of its repetition of what I've said. 1, we have a leadership board. We have an improvement board, which therefore has all of the key strategic and senior players on it, so nothing can be hidden away. It's there. Number 2, it's also been escalated as one of my personal priorities. So on a monthly basis, the performance and improvement will be reported to my leadership team. So as a whole council leadership, we'll keep it in view and make sure that the whole organisation is supporting. And I think tomorrow, it's either today or tomorrow, I have 2 adults and children's. I've instigated quarterly safeguarding reviews so that myself, the lead member, the director, and hopefully the independent chair of safeguarding, we sit around the table and we check and we get our additional assurance around the specifics of safeguarding. So we're putting a lot of checks and balances in place to make sure that the whole organisation has visibility of this journey, and that hasn't happened before.
Chair, if you indulge me. Thank you, Chief Executive. That was great. And overall, I think what this report says, I'm very happy with. And I look forward to reading the report that you're going to, or the plan that you're going to put to Ofsted. But thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, Richard, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I'm encouraged to hear what you've been saying, Chief Executive. It's clear in the first bit that you mentioned about scrutiny, and that scrutiny from outside will be looking at us very clearly. But obviously to improve, it obviously would then have scrutiny within. And you've alluded to the fact that your monthly meetings, etc., which is encouraging. I think where I come from, in terms of the health and care scrutiny and then safeguarding scrutiny, is that because of that overlap, it could be that you're missing, through the process, something could be missed out. And I would probably like to think that, and I certainly mentioned the coordinating group for, you know, for the forum for the scrutiny, that it does need ownership, because this is an issue that needs to take us forward to get out of it. And so that degree of ownership by a scrutiny committee rather than perhaps two is important. I don't mind which one it is. I think it's important for the authority that there is one that takes the lead and deals with it full-heartedly. And if that means task groups and so forth, then I think that would be appropriate to help with the process, because it may be, you know, are we doing this? It's those checks and measures, isn't it, that we're approaching. So it's really more of a, and you've alluded to a lot of that, I think, but I just really want to put the belt and braces on it to really ensure that we are looking at it, because certainly the one that we, you know, for the second time hadn't improved. That's a bit of a concern for me, and we mustn't let a third happen, and it's got to be to pull us through. So really to encourage what I've heard, and I'm hoping that we can move forward with it.
Again, I think you raised a very good point. We will need to be careful not to over-engineer and to over-design so that scrutiny is coming from everywhere. I think that just could distract, and I'm not hiding away, I promise. I'll come straight to your point. That could distract from the job in hand, which is improve these services and outcomes for children, please. I think there is, though, an opportunity just to reflect on how we scrutinise. I mean, this will be very public. There'll be clear documentation. There'll be a clear journey from everything I've described. It is absolutely right and proper that as members of the County Council that you're able to scrutinise that in some detail. Which committee that's at, including this one, that would be something that we will want to think through. So, because you're quite right, Councillor, what must not happen, which we could possibly have said has, through a lack of visibility, is that things fall through the gaps. And there's an added dimension of this, and we'll see where this goes. And I only mention this because you mentioned that health aspect in terms of the health scrutiny role that we have here. We're not the only ones who are concerned, and my concerns about health import, and indeed Ofsted's concerns about health import, have been mirrored in inspections in the city of Stoke-on-Trent as well. The latest being, I understand, a re-inspection of Sen's services, which I think they've done very well at, actually, so they deserve to be pleased. But myself and the city director have requested a meeting with the chief and he's accepted a meeting with the chief executive of the ICB. One of the challenges there is that while the health system in Staffordshire is grappling with overspends and demand, and therefore that will become the focus, we are going to go insisting that the provision of care to children remains one of the top priorities for the NHS, so it's not lost. If we're successful in that lobbying, then I'd expect to see a reaction from that service, which is an improvement plan. And also, in due course, we may wish to consider how we scrutinise the NHS's response to this challenge as well. So, I say a lot of things coming together currently, so sorry for being it will, it may, we're going. We're just at that point in the journey. But how we can then map that in for a very clear one-place scrutiny of this journey, I think will be really important, and possibly something we can discuss offline, because we mustn't confuse.
Thank you. I've got two more speakers, Keith and Phil. Can I have both questions? Because I did say I'd only keep the chief exec till 5:30, and then respond to both, please. Is that all right? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. And yes, it's been interesting to hear about what you're trying to do with all the requirements on the new SEND development. Just going back to governance for the time being, because we're here from that point of view. Within the new sort of corporate governance sort of settings that are going out there at the moment, and there's been new guidelines I noticed within the document, is this continual review and improvement. So my question really is that, okay, that we need to improve, but I do think there's a role here for us to be able to keep that going after the inspections and everything else. I noticed there's 2 more, well, not inspections, but visits, shall we say, during the coming year. For me, I think it would be appropriate for us to try and point out what our strategic objectives are and trying to achieve that within that remit, because we're here from an audit point of view, really, and it's just having that overview. I do agree with what you've just said and everything else, because I'm on the corporate parenting panel and the family improvement board and all the and the health committee. So there's 3 or 4 different areas which all have to come together to do this. I noticed dentistry was mentioned as well in one of the bullet points that we need to improve and all the rest of it. So there's an awful lot of there's detail there, but it's also this overall governance that I just wanted to try and bring it back to, so that we here could see just how that is going to be placed in future, as it's going to keep, hopefully, carry on improving as time goes on. I'm not sure about the numbers that were given, because on corporate parenting, I know myself and the chair today, we're both on corporate parenting. I can't remember them being quite up to that level, but it has gone up and it is levelling off, as you said earlier in your statement. So it's just really that, how do you see it planning out to hit those strategic objectives and to obviously get the good and excellent marks that we need in the future? Thank you.
Phil, can we have your question as well? And then,
I think mine's been answered, so I'm going to do a little supplementary. So I talked about governance and we talked about scrutiny, and that's why we're here, because this result is disappointing, isn't it? It's disappointing for us all. There's no doubt about that, especially where children are concerned. So I wanted to ask a question about scrutiny, and I think that's really important. I think you answered that we need to look at that in some detail. I think we have the same level of responsibility to make scrutiny is looked at. But the other second part of my question is whether we have a time frame, whether we've actually discussed or planned to have a time frame for when we start the improvements for the plan, and actually when we consider it, because we can wait for Ofsted to give us good. But there's also a possibility to say, actually, we've looked at all the Ofsted framework and we think now we've reached good, and then we're ready. In fact, good is something we should never aspire to. We should aspire way beyond good. You know, if that's only our aspiration, then there's something really wrong. We should, especially with our children's services, our aspiration should be way beyond good. I know we have new staff coming in to do this, and that should be our aspiration. But the time frame was the real question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for both of those questions. If I go in order of the questions, Councillor Flunder, in terms of the timescale, if you like, of scrutiny and keeping this in view, I think my prime motivation is always: are children safe? Do we know we're safe? What can we do to make sure that the children and staff should remain as safe as they can? Acknowledging that harm happens, that's society. You can't stop everything, but you need to be visible. So that's number one. Actually, one of the real drivers behind what we've implemented, or what we are implementing here, is to make sure that that improvement journey is now highly visible. It's not hidden in a directory, it's not hidden in a space, it's actually there for all to see. That means that the journey that we're on and the preference around how this is, and this will knock into Councillor Hewitt's question, and therefore how we scrutinise that, it won't be hidden, it will be based on perpetually contemporary information, so you'll know exactly how we're doing from month to month. Ofsted won't be here for another 3 or 4 years anyway, so that mechanism will be in place for at least those 3 or 4 years, because you don't know you're at least good, which I'll come to as well, until you get there. So by definition, and also what I've got to weave in, which I haven't done yet, is we still have an ongoing improvement journey in special educational needs and disabilities as well, which won't be covered initially here, but I've got to be sure that that doesn't fall between the gaps and set up a mechanism for there. So I can guarantee that you will have very visible, against a plan, an experience, you'll have a very visible plan for improvements, which will be updated every month, and therefore that information will be available for scrutiny for the foreseeable future. And however we decide collectively to scrutinise that, it will go on. And there is no justification to stand that down for a very long time, because we won't be inspected. And so that's massively important. Although we will have annual visits by Ofsted, so they'll give us a good indication if we're moving in the right direction. Point number one. And I hope, please come back if that didn't answer the question. Councillor Hewitt, in terms of, well, I hope that sort of begins to sort of leap over in terms of the view of scrutiny. We're agreeing in spades here. It needs to be scrutinised. It needs to be very public. I need to be accountable to the council. So does my director for the improvements that we make. So that's there. In terms of the time frame, well, gosh, that is a little bit of a how long's a piece of string. And the honest answer is I don't know at this point. I know the beginning, it's happening now. It is absolutely happening. Some of those quick wins around supervision are happening now. What I can say is that the improvement architecture, if you like, is being established this month and will be started, so that will be happening. What I can say is that an improvement plan will be submitted in April, so you'll see the plan, and then thereafter we'll define the timescales to improvement. So that will be there, that will be very visible, similarly. And actually, you're quite right. It's one of those, oh, for goodness sake moments. Yeah, I arrived genuinely with the ambition as this is a great opportunity to take an organisation from good to outstanding. And I managed to grab hold of that for at least 6 months until you were told, well, you're not anymore. I still don't see why, because as I said, it comes back to that point of this is not necessarily about the quality of social care practice. And that's the most difficult thing to turn around, because they're saying it's quite good here. I still don't see any reason why our ambition, and this is really difficult, it doesn't happen very often. It does happen, but not very often. I don't see any reason why our plan shouldn't be still from day one to get us from requires improvement to outstanding. The ambition cannot be to get ourselves from requires improvement back to be good in the next 3 years, because we've gone on a long boomerang to get exactly where we were 3 or 4 months ago. That doesn't feel intuitively right. So the ambition will be enormous. The funding is in place at the moment. It's a well-funded part of the organisation. We know where we have issues around number of children in care, and we have plans for that, which will ease the financial burden. There is a little bit of it. I don't know if it still holds true in the new world, but there is a little bit of actually good and outstanding children's services are cheaper than requires improvements and inadequate, because people throw money at those kind of things. So actually it's in our own interest to make sure we spend our money wisely. So it's happening now. Architecture's being put in place. Timescales for completion, would you mind bearing with me, but it will be very visible and known. That will emerge over the next 2 or 3 months. I hope I've answered the questions. If I've not, please come back.
Absolutely, Pat. Thank you so much for coming in today. We will see you again because I'm sure this committee will want assurances on the controls, because that's our job. So I'm sure we'll see you again in sometime soon. But for now, the committee, we're here to approve the updates going into the annual governance statement. Is that fine by all? Approved unanimously. Thank you very much, Pat. So we're back to the plan. So we're back on number 4 now. That's page 13. And the next 3 items are all basically for our approval. So it's just information being brought to us. So it's over to Kate. Thank you. Page 13.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Chris Eberly as the Head of Member and Democratic Services, who's going to provide an update in relation to the collaborative work that's been underway in relation to member and officer relations. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Members, obviously, of this committee were a part of this. In summer of last year, Member and Democratic Services convened a working group made up of elected members and officers to review the existing guidance on member-officer relations, which were published some 10 plus years ago. Workshop was well attended, and I'm sure all those who were a part of it would agree that it was a very, very fruitful discussion and sort of useful for all parties. The view of the working group was that the actual guidance themselves were good. Didn't need a lot of work to be done to them, but just some minor amendments to sort of reflect changes in the way that we work nowadays. The comments were mainly around, I take this as absolutely a positive, that the only thing that really needed sort of discussion was about how members and officers refer to one another, both formally but also informally as well. So that was sort of picked up. In terms of suggested amendments, they're all tracked changes within the document, but there was some further clarification required on the roles of officers and members so that we're clear on what it is each group of people do and the responsibilities they have. Particular wording on the management of officers and the responsibilities for who manages officers. An inclusion of a section on personal relationships, particular reference to social media, which is something that's more and more prevalent nowadays than what it was when these guidance were originally produced. In terms of sort of governance of this and the sign-off, it's been through the Corporate Assurance Board internally with officers, and it's now brought to you as members for sign-off. The next steps, assuming it is approved today by yourselves, it will be adopted within the Constitution as per the powers of the monitoring officer, and then the next steps for us will look to then sort of set up workshops with officers and members to raise awareness, particularly ahead of local elections next year. So it will include as part of the induction programme. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to this committee for all the involvement in this. Can we go to Phil first this time?
I have a comment rather than a question. I have a comment rather than a question. I was very much involved with this, was keen for this to work. Can I compliment Chris on making this happen? To get good relationships, and it was some of the silly things that are under discussion as to because I can happily refer to Chris and Chris can refer to me as Phil, but sometimes in a public setting like today, when people are watching on screen, people don't always know who Phil is, but you know it's great. It's Councillor Hewitt, so I could be held to account like that. So I think it's important. That was for me. It was important as to who you referred to and what you. But really, my point was that this is a great report. I'm absolutely fully supportive of it. It was really important to do, but more importantly, it was really important to do because next May, probably 50% of the council won't be here. They're all new people for also not necessarily for political reasons. People stand down, they retire. So there's a big change. So I'm absolutely delighted that this report is in place now, ready for, in effect, what will be quite a number of new councillors. And I'm also delighted to know that we're going to do some workshops on it as well. Okay, that's it. It's a comment, and there's no question there at all, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Totally agree with you. I, for one, are standing down. So there we are. Keith.
Mine are more comments and questions as well. So I'm quite glad to see that the idea that we're going to be informed of things happening in our divisions before it goes public. That's been an issue of mine for some time now, so I'm great to see that. If we could extend it to cabinet members as well, it'd be interesting to see if that would work. But anyway, thank you very much. The other thing is 2 working days to get information back to us. I think that's still a goal that we need to work on highways. I don't want to say anything else, but I think in other areas it does tend to be a couple of days when officers get back to us, but in some areas it's a need to get better. And then finally, I noticed on 712 that we still can't stand as MEPs. I don't know whether that needs to be included in the document or not. I would suggest it probably doesn't. So I don't know whether that could be taken out. But anyway, that was it really. Thank you.
Lastly, Graham.
I just move that it's a no-brainer that we accept this report. Thank you very much. And you can leave the MEP bit in because I am entitled to be an MEP, unlike some other councillors. Thank you.
So, Chris, did you want to come back on any of it or not? No. So thank you very much for your time. So it's just up to us to accept this so that it can be put into the Constitution. Is that fine by everybody? You okay? Thank you, Chris. Okay. So it's the Kate show today. So we're now on page 25. This is the adoption of statutory guidance on settlement agreements. So again, to Kate, thank you.
Thank you again, Chair. Thank you, councillors. It's a short report before you today in relation to a constitutional change. The settlement agreement has been on a journey through audit and standards, as you'll see from the report. This started with a review, the Strategic Internal Audit Plan review, leading to an audit report presented to Audit and Standards on the 20th of September, with the progress report being presented on the 25th of April. As part of that work, we've picked up the statutory guidance from the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities and made sure that that's integrated within the work that's taking place. The recommendation before you, I hope, is straightforward, with the appendices set out explaining what the statutory guidance is and why we need to adopt it. But I am happy to take any questions. Thank you.
So again, this is for us to note and adopt. Keith? Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question, page 36. It was interesting. How many payments below 20,000 has there been to require that element of it in this document?
Thank you. I don't have the data in terms of how many. I'm aware as part of the audit report that was presented last... there has been some. The audit report that was presented previously last year actually did do an analysis of all of the data, but I don't have the updated information. Should you require it, I'm happy to get that to you. Thank you.
Pop your mic on, Graham. Thanks.
It's statutory requirements. We're obliged to accept it. Can I just move that we accept it and move on? Thank you.
And can I have it second then, or is it unanimous? Yeah, okay, brilliant, thank you. So we're moving on then to Kate again. Proposed constitutional changes. This one is to do with Nexus, that has been back and forward here quite a few times. Page 41, to you, Kate.
Thank you again, and thank you for your time this morning. Yes, another further constitutional change and recommendation. The Nexus, the work that we've been doing in relation to LATCOs and companies has now crystallised. We have reviewed Nexus, worked collaboratively with Nexus to make sure it's fit for the future and to make sure that from a governance point of view and from a constitutional point of view, it operates, an already good service operates in exactly the way that we need it to. The proposal before you today deals with the proposal and what's been set out for this committee previously about the Director of Health and Care, Dr. Harling, standing down as a Director for Nexus, but holding a shareholder representative role, a really key and important role in relation to being able to give the strategic guidance to Nexus. That's the recommendation before you, and that's the amendment that we're requesting for the Constitution to make sure that Dr. Harling can act as the shareholder representative. Again, I hope that the report is clear on this point, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Again, this is for us to note and agree. Phil?
Sorry, just for clarification, there's a single shareholder, am I right in saying that? Which is Stafford County Council?
Correct.
Yeah, so we have representation on there. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I thought that was the case, I just wanted to be clear.
Is everyone happy then to note and agree? Unanimous again? Brilliant, thank you. So moving on now, this is a lot more interesting. So we have Hassan with us today, page 45. This is the annual audit report 2020-2021. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. So the annual auditor's report summarises the conclusions for our 2021 audit. We have already in our audit results report, which was presented to the committee, outlined the key issues which we've identified in relation to our audit. So this report is issued after we've given the opinion, and what it also includes, our value for money commentary in the appendices, which reports on the criteria as defined by the NAO, so it reports our findings in respect of each of those criteria. It is the arrangements which are in place for the 2021 audit, so points which have just been referred to earlier on in relation to findings of Ofsted will be considered in our future reports. Just one point before I take any questions, just want to apologise that on your page 48, on page 4 of the report, on the at the very top of that table, it says 2012-22 for some reason. It should be 2020-21 conclusions. But wasn't planning on going through the report in detail, but happy to take any questions which members may have.
I do have a few questions, but I'll go to the committee first. Does anybody have any questions for Hussain? Keith, thank you.
Yeah, just basically about the significant risk identified in the two areas. I think it's on page 55, something like that. No, it's not 55. Oh, here we are, yes. 52. It's like the significant risks have been identified. I think you did outline them separately. One was budget gaps, and the other one, which is what we've just been talking about. So you have identified Ofsted and CQC and SEND as potential risks there. Is there any reason why those were picked out that far back? Because obviously that's before any inspections or anything else, because that's like are we going back 3 years, is it now, on this one?
So it was identified at that point in time because it was following on from the previous inspection report, which was referred to earlier, and it was looking at the arrangements that the council had in place at that point in terms of responding to those points.
Do you think that the fact that they weren't audited and things, we didn't pick up on it, and that's one of the reasons why we're in probably where we are now? Or is that just something that's just one of those things that just happens anyway?
I think in terms of the extensiveness of the Ofsted inspection, yeah, so it does go into those points in a lot more detail than we would do in terms of our responsibilities. So our responsibilities is just looking at the arrangements and looking at how the council is responding to particular points that have previously been raised. I think, as you've heard earlier, in hindsight, there might have been other kind of mechanisms that may have been put in place to take the council forward.
We need to take more account of what you're telling us then, don't we, really, in terms of what we need to try and do for future planning. Is one of the sort of conclusions I come out of that for myself. So I just think, you know, it's nice to go back in time, a bit retrospective, but not actually then be able to understand why it was that wasn't reacted on sooner. That just seems to be a bit ironic at the moment, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, can I bring you to page 63 on the computer? It's page 19 on your report. I think your wording was value for money. There's a lot extra on here, not just a little bit. I know time has run away, but I'm bringing you back a couple of years to I was desperate for you to fix a date and stick to it. And I never really did get an answer of why you couldn't do that. And then when I look at all these extra charges, it's because things have run on. And my simple head goes to, my son's an electrician. He gives a price for a job and he said it's going to take him 5 days and it's going to cost £1,000. If then he decided to take a month to do it instead and then charge them £4,000, I think someone would be very upset. But I feel we have no control over that. Maybe it's just my simple mind, but could you try and put it into simpler terms of why we could never set a date and why things can run on?
I think in terms of setting a date for completing the audit, there have been a number of kind of issues that have impacted on that. I mean, we did, there was, initially when we were undertaking the audit, there were issues from our side in terms of our team's capacity. There were then, as time progressed, there were points that came out as a result of the audit in respect of accounting for infrastructure assets, where we were waiting for national guidance in terms of the work of SIPFA in relation to that. There were then issues that came up subsequently to, if the audit had been completed on time, then had to be factored into our work in terms of completing those procedures, and also from the council's side in terms of preparing the accounts and assessing whether or not there was an issue there. In our audit plan, we would have highlighted the fact that, in our view, the scale fee as set by the PSA was not sufficient for the work that is required in relation to auditing an authority the size of Staffordshire County Council. We did outline in our audit plan that was the case. We also, in the audit results report, have outlined the range of the additional fees for areas impacting the audit. Some of those are to do with changes in our responsibilities. So, for example, the new NAO code in respect of VFM. So that has been a change in the work that's been required since the scale fee was additionally set. Also, areas such as the increased work that we've got to do to comply with ISA 570 for going concern. Again, that's something which is additional to when the code was when the scale fee was additionally set. The fees that have been, the additional fees that have been outlined there, so they're proposed fees, so they are subject to PSA determination, so we have to submit those to the PSA. The PSA will make an assessment in terms of the additional, additional fees which they believe should be charged. As you can see, for 1920, they determined that the additional fees should be 79,770 for the 2020 audit. Does that answer your question, or is there more points that you...
A little bit. Yeah, I can read that in the report that they've agreed a 25% uplift, but you're looking at a nearly 300% uplift here. To me, it just doesn't bode well. But just going down, I don't understand the whole financial system. So please excuse my ignorance. I just see it as there's an amount set, even with the 25% uplift that PSAA are saying is acceptable here. Your end figures, to me, are huge, and I'm trying to understand, is that because we don't have enough staff here responding to you quickly, efficiently, or was it you didn't have enough staff to respond back to us quickly and efficiently? And I just can't quite get my head around those figures. I understand they'll go back anyway to the PSAA and they'll decide whether they're correct or not. So it's not up to us to decide. I just want to know, have we got everything right for the coming year? Are we in the right place for the next one? And I don't feel comfy. I'm meant to feel very comfortable sat here.
So the 25% increase, which that relates to the rate, the rate per hour, which the PSA have set for for additional fees. So it's not necessarily a 25% uplift. It says 25% on the rate. In terms of the areas there, so we're highlighting that where we identified in our planning that there was a significant risk of in respect of valuation of land and buildings. So we did engage our internal valuation team to provide us with a view as to the cost of that particular additional work. Again, we've identified risks in relation to accounting for disposal of schools converting to academies and group accounts. The council doesn't prepare group accounts, but there are interest in relevant joint ventures and subsidiaries where we need to make the assessment as to whether or not group accounts should be prepared in those in that regards. Does it come over a particular threshold? So again, there's additional work that's undertaken in order to make an assessment for that. Similarly accounting for PFI, going concern infrastructure assets. They're all points which we've highlighted and where additional work has been undertaken. I think it goes back to the point that we've made previously in terms of the adequacy of the scale fee to meet the regulatory demands which are placed on auditors and also to audit an organisation the size of the county council. We've highlighted that in our view it's not sufficient. I think some of that point has probably come to if you look at the increase in scale fees that are being set for future audits for the 23-24 audits going forward, when you've be having new auditors coming in to be responsible for the audit. I think you can see that probably provides a bit of a context as to where the fees should have been in respect of the council.
Hassan, thank you very much for explaining this. I do still feel slightly uncomfortable, but it's maybe my lack of knowledge, so apologies if it is. Can we go on to 8 then? We're getting a verbal update from you, is that correct?
That's right. So in relation to the 21-22 and 22-23 audits, just to I've previously outlined at earlier audit committees that in relation to the reset of the local government audit market, that there's been proposals of a need to have a reset in order to get the audit market back on track, so that audits are being delivered in a more timely way and also relevant to the year of audit. On the 6th of December, Stephen Reed, who's a partner who heads up our government and public sector team, wrote to Section 151 officers outlining what we were doing as a firm and how we're focusing our capacity. So we kind of pointed out within that letter that we're looking to maximise completion of historic audits, working to close out audits which are substantially complete. So, for example, our 2021 audit of the county council, also focusing on pension fund audits. So we are undertaking work on the 22-23 pension fund audits because we need to provide assurance to other to other auditors in the area. Also focusing prioritising work on our VFM reporting. So our team have been undertaking work in respect of the 22-23 arrangements in relation to VFM, and also where relevant looking to start work on planning 23-24 if we had the capacity to do so. I think so that set out where our priorities were and what we're looking to focus on, and that was in expectation of the reset. So recently, FRC and DLUC have and the NAO have gone out to consultation on proposals for a reset. So that the consultation period's open for 4 weeks. It started on the 8th of February and it's due to complete on the 7th of March. Within the consultation documents, I think the NAO have outlined that as at December 2023, there was a cumulative backlog of audits of 771 audits that were outstanding. So I think that gives a context as to where the market is in on a national basis. The consultation, which I'm sure officers will provide members with a fuller briefing, but the consultation does seek views on proposed legislative changes to the accounts and audit regulations. They set out three stages in terms of getting the system back on track. So phase one is a reset, which involves clearing historic audits up to 2023, and the proposed backstop date for that is the end of September, and that is a backstop date. So it's not necessarily saying that you'd be expected to be working to that date, but it's when auditors need to come to a conclusion, and in coming to a conclusion, that it's outlined within the with consultation documents that may well be a form of disclaimed opinion on for those years. So I expect that there will be a number of those given the scale of outstanding audits which I've referred to earlier. Phase two will be a recovery by introducing backstop dates for future years, which then gradually aims to get the position where auditors are reporting by the end of November for the relevant financial year. And then phase three is actions to a reform to address systemic challenges in the local audit systems. That may well be changes to the Code of Audit Practice. I know SIPFA are due to be going out to consult on the accounting code as well, so looking to make changes there potentially, which may again help to get the system back to where it needs to be. So in terms of Staffordshire County Council at present, as I said, we're working on our VFM reporting. We're looking to have that concluded by the end of March with a draft report to follow. We are working on the pension fund audits, and I expect that we'll also be we'll be issuing a disclaimed opinion for the 22-23 and 21-22, but that is subject to the outcomes of the consultation process and what comes out of the consultation. In terms of, because as I said, it will need some legislative changes. If we were issuing a disclaimed opinion, we would share the. So we haven't got a proposed format of the wording for that, but I expect it would make a reference to the legislation. Well, it would be making reference to legislation, setting out the context of that opinion. As I said, there'll be subject to what comes out of the consultation and what is the legislative change that put into place. There'll be a number of those that will be issued across the system in order to get the position back on track and meeting the dates which are set out as part of the reset. Happy to take any questions in relation to what I've just outlined there.
Okay, I've got about 3 million, so I better try and calm myself and not. I've got to ask this one. disclaimer, what does that mean then? If you put in a disclaimer to the council, does that mean you don't do the accounts, or you do a very basic account, or what? Sorry, I just don't quite understand it all. So what happens with a disclaimer?
So, as I said, the wording is yet to be determined, because it will be subject to what comes out. But what it means is that you haven't undertaken the work in order to come to a conclusion. Therefore, you're issuing a disclaimer saying that I haven't undertaken sufficient work in order to reach a conclusion, but I'm issuing this opinion which states that is the fact.
So the opinion on your accounts, does that cost the council still?
There will be some work that's undertaken in order to come to that. So there'll be work on the VFM side, and there'll be some work that's undertaken. But obviously, it's a lot less than a full audit. And PSA have outlined that once the consultation once the consultation that's happening at the moment have concluded that they'll be reflecting on whatever is decided, and then issuing some guidance or communication to local authorities on what that will mean for fees. So.
May I ask a question this side? Sorry. So was you aware of this, that Ernest Young are looking at doing a disclaimer, and have we got other things in place ready, if so?
I think, as Hassan has outlined, there's a consultation that's been published, so I am aware of that and the information included in the consultation, and the County Council will submit a response by the deadline of the 7th of March regarding the consultation. So the issue of disclaimer and modified opinions is set out in there, and it does say that the wording's not yet agreed, and I'm assured that from what Hassan said, he would share any wording with the Director of Finance and the rest of the team for us to be comfortable with that before it was brought before the committee. So it's not an ideal situation, but I think that the audit backlog nationally is not an ideal situation, and this is the action that the government and the FRC and SIPFA and the NAO, the other bodies involved, think that authorities and audit firms need to take in order to address the backlog and then move forward. So hopefully it will achieve that.
Thank you, Rachel. Graham.
I think the use of disclaimer before it's finalised, you understand that anybody offering financial consultancy, which an auditor is, they can be sued. So they have a very large... So when I was a management consultant, I could not give financial advice. My insurance company wouldn't fund it, and they pay a very large premium, so they have to make sure until that's signed off by their partners, that an accountant, somebody doing auditing work, such as Ernst & Young or any of the other companies, have to be incredibly careful about the words they use up until that report is finalised. And I think otherwise they can could possibly, potentially open themselves to somebody claiming against them. And that doesn't help the client, and it doesn't help. So that's why they use words which you might find ambiguous, but as it's already said, it's not been finalised, and therefore it's until the Director of Finance and the Chief Auditor, External Auditor, sits down and finalises that report, you will get the odd word in there, which is basically a placeholder.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for helping me get my head around it. It's just, I'm really worried about the implications on the council, that's all. Keith, thank you.
Yeah, just trying to make myself, trying to get it right from my perspective. So we've got 21 and 22 and 22 and 23 to come yet. You're saying that in future years, so this year's 23-24 accounts should be completed and ready for November, and we can then go through and get all the MTFT and everything else sorted out. I can't see that happening this year at the moment. I don't know about you, because if the September deadline, I assume, is that for both sets of accounts. So I've got some more yet, don't worry. And then finally, are you doing the accounts to the old standards? This is part of the reason why you've got this letter of limited responsibility. Well, I'll call it letter of restriction, as it were. So there's quite a few. So are you doing it to the old standards, if there are new standards that this year's accounts are going to have to be held to? And how's it all going to fit into the next 6 months? Because we've only just done 2021. Thanks.
Yes. So in terms of the dates which are currently under consultation, so for audits up to 22-23, so that would be 21-22 and 22-23. There's a date of the 30th of September this year. For the 23-24 audit, which is which will be undertaken by your new external auditors, the backstop date for those audits, as is currently proposed, is the, if I remember off the top of my head now, it's the end of May next year. So it's the backstop date for the 23-24, and then for 24-25, I'll need to get back to you in terms of the dates, but there's another backstop date that's been issued for 24-25, and then eventually it's getting to a position where it's either 25-26 where it then catches up to November where it should be. Is that? I can see Rachel's nodding there. I don't know if she's got the dates in front of her at all.
Rachel, would you like to come back to us?
Thank you. I just wanted to reassure members that even though the audits are not complete, we have completed the draft accounts. So we've obviously published the 22-23 draft accounts. They're on the website, and we are working currently on 23-24, the current financial year, with the new auditors. We're undertaking planning work with them and working alongside them in terms of their planning. They obviously can't, well, we're not at the end of 23-24, so until we reach that point, we can't do anything further with them, but we are working alongside them. So preparations are underway from our point of view to try to move the situation forward, and the consultation includes these proposed backstop dates, which will, as Hassan said, bring things back in line to a November deadline over a period of years. So gradually each one is a little bit earlier, which would hopefully be workable for both local authorities and auditors.
Rachel, thank you so much. You always give me a bit of assurance. I feel better now I've listened to you. Thank you. Is there anything else, or can we move on from this now?
Within my questions, I did ask about the standard to which you're auditing to. That was all.
Yes, apologies. So in terms of the standards which we're auditing to, so that, as I said, the NAO are consulting on the Code of Audit Practice. So they've got some proposed changes within there, so that might, depending on the outcomes of the consultation, there might be some changes there. Also, as I said, SIPFA are due to be going out to consultation on the accounting code, and whether or not that comes to, puts in place any reductions on what is currently being required for local authorities to report on, may well then impact on the work that auditors need to do. So there have been there have been statements made in terms of that potentially, SIPFA might be looking at the accounting for, land and buildings, for example, and also, pension fund assets, but yet to see what comes out as part of the consultation. Again, I don't know if Rachel has got anything to add from any points that you might have heard as well in the sector about SIPFA's consultation.
I think I just wanted if these new ones can't be backdated. That means you'll have different standards across different years, I assume, as you going forward over this timetable up until 2026.
Yes. So Hassan, thank you so much for coming today. Even if bringing us a bit of doom and gloom, I think, in some ways, but that's just the way I look at things. But yeah, thank you very much. Cheers. Oh, did you? No, sorry. So we are missing 10. We're going on to, no, we're on 10. Missing 9, going on to 10. Internal Audit Charter, that's Debbie. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an annual report that comes to the committee asking members to approve the Internal Audit Charter for 2024. So on page 133 of your pack, it sets out some further backgrounds to why we have an Internal Audit Charter. So the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards 1000 requires that we formally set out the purpose, authority and responsibility of internal audit activity within a charter. So you will see our charter for 2024, which is on pages 137 to 157 of your pack. This sets out where internal audit positions itself within the authority, along with reporting lines, expectations in regards to access to personnel and records, and also the scope of the internal audit activity within the authority. Each year we refresh and review the charter to confirm that it is fit for purpose. There is just one minor change that's required for 2024, which is just a housekeeping exercise in terms of changing the role of the Assistant Director for Internal Audit and Financial Services, which is replacing the Head of Internal Audit. What I'd like to bring to the committee's attention, though, as well, is that in January earlier this year, there were changes to the global standards of internal audit, so the new global audit standards were published. This really sets out the professional practices of internal audit functions, and they relate to individuals and functions, whether you're in the public or private sector. So going forward, there may be some changes to the Internal Audit Charter that are required. However, we are just waiting further guidance from SIPFA, who are our own public sector setters of standards. They are due to sit in March, and that then may require some changes to the local government application note. So we will await any further changes to the Charter pending further guidance from them. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions in relation to the Charter.
So this is here for us to approve. Any questions?
Can I just say it's absolutely nothing against it. I move that we approve it. Thank you.
No questions? Are we all up for approval, or is that a question, Keith?
Just a quick question, yeah. Obviously, the new standards are coming in, so I just wondered, I've just taken or been on a couple of SIFA training courses, and I did actually found them very good. So I just wondered if there's something there that we could perhaps do with new standards and everything else in terms of relating to roles of us within that, auditing our accounts, doing other things, and also explaining perhaps when standards or things have changed, a little bit more detail on them. One was on, for my previous one was on health and the other one was on scrutiny and stuff, and I just found them really good. So just a general comment, if we can do something perhaps for members, not necessarily people on this committee, but other members as well, just so they get more of an idea about what we're meant to be trying to do. Thank you.
Okay, so we all approve this, yeah? Yep, thank you. So moving on to forward plan. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. This particular document is one that you see every particular meeting. It highlights what is coming up on the next couple of agendas, because they're the remaining ones in this particular civic year. Included in the document before you are the draft dates for the next round, 12 months, that members from Democratic Services have provided us with, and suitable items on the agenda will be populated for next time. Obviously, we'll track and keep details of how the outstanding external audit reports are being submitted to the authority, and they'll come through to yourselves once we receive them as and when. So happy to take any questions in relation to the document.
Graham.
Thank you, Chair. In light of the Chief Executive's rather eloquent discussion about children's services, will children's services be a regular matter for internal audit? Thank you.
In terms of the audits that will be incorporated into the 24-25 internal audit plan, Debbie will bring that to one of the next meetings, subsequent meetings, so you'll be able to understand and get that assurance from the internal audit work being undertaken in that area. In respect of the wider assurance work that is going on that the Chief Exec outlined, those scrutiny arrangements that still need to be refined and to be resolved.
I think I speak for all the committee that the 9 points that are the really important ones are absolutely important to this committee. Cyber security, children's services, that the whole gamut. We're very, very interested in that, because that's what keeps this council safe and members. Thank you.
Brilliant. William, thank you for joining us today, but I now have to exclude you and the rest of the public from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below. We might as well crack on, because there's only one thing